Hi guys, Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to make faux Labradorite. So what you're going to need is a sheet of black Primo rolled out on the thickest setting of your pasta machine. And then you're going to need to bring over some foil, and I'm just busy getting that. And you want Lisa Pavelka's silver foil. It has to be this to work. Just normal metal leaf isn't going to work. It has to be this foil, otherwise you're not going to get the same effect. And now you want to smooth this onto your clay, bring over your roller and roll it flat so that you can see where there are air bubbles. So just roll it flat, and I can see it, there's an air bubble there, so I'm just going to lift that up carefully and smooth it back down and see if I can eliminate the air bubble, because any air bubbles are a problem because they're going to affect the overall look. You want as solid a sheet as you can. So that should work. Now what we want to do is we want to trim away the excess foil, and now you can use Lisa Pavelka's normal burnishing method. I find that it just doesn't work for me. I don't get a full cover enough for the technique that we're doing, so I like to use my heat gun for this. So I'm using this heat gun, and you want to use the lowest setting on your heat gun just to gently warm the foil, because it's heat that transfers it onto the clay rather than pressure. So I'm going to switch it on and gently warm this up. Okay, quickly go put that aside, grab a corner and rip, and it gives a perfect cover. That's actually one of the best ones I've given, if I'm going to be honest. So you can see that, just going to put the heat gun away, you can see that that gives you a perfect cover without too much hassle. Now you want to let that cool. Actually no, you want to actually heat it again. So what we did there was we just gently heated the clay. So the clay is actually still raw, it hasn't cooked at all. So I just wanted to heat it very gently just to get the foil to adhere to the clay. You don't want to be cooking your clay, so just be gentle with it. Now I'm going to bring over the heat gun again, and again the lower setting. What we want to be doing is we want to now be cooking this or baking it so that we can get a crackle. So I'll switch it on and gently start warming. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just gently going to feel the top, and generally you can get a feel for this. It's a lot harder to do when the clay is covered by something, because usually you can see when the clay is baked because it goes from a shiny finish to a matte finish. But when it's like this, I have to do it by touch. So if it's cooled, so it's cooling down, and it's not firm to the touch, I need to carry on baking. So it's a bit of trial and error because I don't want to be baking it too much. So I'm just going to check this section over here because it's part of that raw section. I can see that that's started to bake. So I'm presuming that this is baked. The problem is that when it's warm, it still feels raw. So I'm going to leave this to cool, and then I'll come back and see if it's completely cured. You don't want completely cured, you just want the top surface to be cured so that you can get a nice crackle. So I'm presuming that that's going to work, but it needs to cool first. Okay, so I've checked it and it is almost where we want it to be. I'm going to check with my roller just by running over to see if it's crackled enough. The problem with this is it's a little bit of trial and error to see if it's crackled enough. Let's see. You can see that we're getting very fine cracks. I think it needs to be heated just a tad more. So I'll bring over the heat gun and warm it a little bit more. There we are, that should be enough. The problem with this is just that you can't actually tell because the foil is covering up the clay. When you're doing crackle on normal clay, the clay goes from shiny to matte, and so you can tell when it's cooked enough. But unfortunately, can't see that here, so I have to do it all by touch and feel. So I do believe that that is crackled enough. So now I'm just gently going to start rolling over the surface, and I'm not pushing too hard, and you always want to do it in one direction. You don't want to be going that way and that way, just in one direction. Okay, so I've crackled it, I can see that I have, but what I want to do now is I need to let this cool, and then I'm going to pick it up and actually do it by hand, and that gives me better cracks. Okay, so it's cooled enough for me to lift it up, and so I'm going to do this very gently because the bottom is still pretty raw, so you need to be careful. Now our stripes are going in this direction, so we rolled in this direction, so that's the direction that we gently want to be pulling in. So you can see there that the cracks are getting exposed. So there we are, that's what we want. We want to gently pull it apart just so that those cracks get exposed. And now you'll see that some cracks are larger than others. That's what we want as well. So I'm just being very careful here. You don't want to be pulling too hard. So that should be enough. Now just gently stick it back down onto the tile, and now we can get onto the fun bits with your alcohol inks. And I'm going to be using Sailboat Blue and Caramel. And these are the only two alcohol inks you need. So I'll start with the caramel, and you're going to need a really small brush like this. You're also going to need a wet wipe on the side to keep your brush clean between changes of alcohol ink. You're going to need 99% alcohol to clean your brush. So I spray my wet wipe with that, and then it helps my brush stay clean, because you don't want your colours crossing into each other unless you want them, unless you're telling them to. So just dab a little bit of that alcohol ink on your brush. And don't worry if the colour's really light in the beginning. We can fix that in a little while. But now we want to just be almost sketching out an area for this. So I want to be patching out where I want the caramel. And now this is quite important. When you're looking at the real stone, it doesn't have tiny little spots everywhere. It's got these rather large patches, and it's important to get that sort of the same effect. You want to be copying the stone as close as possible. So maybe when you're doing this project, you might want to go and get a photo online of a Labradorite stone, just so that you can lay out where everything's supposed to go. Colour wise, I've got it right, and you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about the streaks or anything like that. Just where you lay out your patches, you might want to go and look at a real stone, just to help you along. Okay, so that's what I want. Now I'm going to go clean off my brush quickly because it's got that brown all over it. so it's nice and clean. And we're going to bring over our sailboat blue. Now the brown colour needs to be very light, so if you see any dark areas, go and brush over it just to make sure that you don't have a dark area, because you need it to be a lightish gold colour. Now the sailboat blue is actually the exact opposite of that. You need it to be really dark, so I'm going to drop on pieces or drops of the alcohol ink, and then I'm going to spread it around. And now don't press hard on your metal leaf or the foil, because it can peel off of the clay, so you want to be very gentle with your brush, because I've had mine peel up and it really doesn't look very good. You can't have it peel up, so just be careful with your brush and let it spread as it spreads. Okay, and don't worry if blue goes into brown. You want those two to naturally cross over each other, because you want a little bit of green in here. But for now, we're just painting a sketch. We're going to go back and saturate some of the colours and we're going to blend. But for now, I'm just going to paint this blue over. So you're going to need quite a bit of the sailboat blue for this, because you need like this colour all over the place. Okay, so there we are. Now, just a quick note, on the camera this might look a little bit off because you're at the wrong angle to see the silver sparkling, so it's darker than it actually is. So don't worry about that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our blue and we're going to make it darker. So just take your bottle and spill a little bit more drops of sailboat blue over your sheet, and you need a lot of ink for this, so because you really want a lovely saturated blue, otherwise it doesn't really work. So almost no saturation for the caramel, but lots for the sailboat. So you can see that by doing this I've increased the colour concentration. Well, over here it's a little bit light, it's quite a bit lighter. So you want to do that across your entire piece of clay. And then what we'll do afterwards is we'll bring over that caramel again, and we want to blend these little bits together so that we have the caramel fading into the blue, because right now it's a little bit bold. So there we are, almost done. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Doesn't matter if some areas are a little bit lighter than others. Now we'll go clean off our brush again, and we'll bring over the caramel. I'm just going to open that up, and I'm going to put a little bit onto my brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the blue areas like this. So we're purposefully blending the two. So just add a little bit here and there and go around just to blend it, and it will give a more natural look. Now I like to go in a kind of round fashion. Okay, and I'm just going to clean off my brush every now and then. To make sure that I am doing this right. There we go. So you'll just go around all these edges blending. It doesn't matter if some end up looking like they don't have any of the caramel left in them. That's fine, you only want small-ish patches of the caramel. So I'm just showing you this entire process so that you can see what I'm doing, because I don't want to skip anything because you could miss a step. Okay. And then we'll come back with the blue and blend it a little bit more as well. This is the most important stage. Okay, I think this caramel needs to be a little bit more saturated. There we go. There. Okay, last little bit. Gonna bring over the blue, and we're just gonna tone down some of these green areas because it's a little bit too green in some areas. Grab a little bit of the blue and go around and blend. And this is why you want a tiny brush. Smaller the better. There we go, that's looking better. Much better. Some of these green areas are a little bit too strong. Okay, so that's about it. Fairly happy with that. So I'm going to pick this up so you can actually see what it looks like, because I can see on the camera here that you're not getting the full look. So I'm just going to gently pick that up. And there we go. You can see how different each angle looks like. So I'm trying to get that in a good spot for you to see. It's very difficult to see at the moment. But there we go. Okay, we had a little spill over here because the blue came out of the crack. So I just want to blend that quickly. Okay. So now what you want to do is you want to leave this for a good 5 to 10 minutes to make sure that all of the ink has dried before you put your translucent layer over the top, and that's quite important. So I might spend a little bit more time blending and messing around with the colours, just a tad to get it to get me happy with it, but basically that is what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so I've put that sheet aside for the moment. And now we are going to work with some Primo translucent that was rolled out on the thinnest setting of our pasta machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the best part. So I'm just going to trim up over here. And what we're going to do is we're just gently going to be stretching it, because I want it a little thinner than the thinnest setting on my pasta machine. So gently want to be stretching it. I don't want too much. Now I'm gently stretching. Now if you want to know how to get your clay this thin on your pasta machine without rippling, I do have a tutorial on that, and so I'll provide a link to that so you can have a check out of that tutorial, because it's quite helpful in this area. There we go. I'm quite happy with that. It's pretty thin. I don't want to be doing it too thin. Now, it's okay if the translucent is a little uneven in some areas, so some areas thinner, some areas thicker. That's perfectly fine. It will add to the natural look of the stone. So I'm just trimming away these straggly edges. And there we go. Now I'll pick that up just at the corner, and I'll bring over our sheet, which has been drying. Gently set it down. I'll bring this over and lay it over the top, and then smooth out the air bubbles. It's important to make sure you get rid of all the air bubbles. Air bubbles are a big problem. So just smooth out what you can with your finger. Okay. And then I'll bring over my acrylic roller. Okay. I'm gently going to roll in the same direction that we rolled before, so that we don't create square cracks. We only want the ones that are going in the one direction, just like the normal stone. Now by rolling it like this, I'm going to be joining the translucent to the leaf underneath, which is important because we want it to stick. And unfortunately, the metal leaf means that it doesn't stick as well as it could, so you need to be careful at this point. Okay. And it's rolling it flat for us as well, which is also good. Okay, so I'll put that aside, and I'll bring over my blade and just gently trim away this leftover metal leaf. Oh, excuse me, this leftover translucent. Just like that. Get that out the way, and then I'll just tuck the other pieces around the sides. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring over our heat gun again and gently heat the top, just a little bit. Now you can watch this because it's just plain clay, so if you watch carefully you'll be able to see it go from a fairly shiny finish to a matte finish, so just watch carefully. And there we are, that's all you needed to do. So I hope you can see that it is baked. Now there's a little bit of an area over here that I need to get. Now the way to tell that it's baked is your fingers should be able to slide across this without them sticking at all. If you feel any areas where it's sticking, that clay is still raw. So bring over your heat gun and heat those. There we are, that's good. Okay, and I'm just running my finger over to make sure that I did get all of the areas, which is important. And then I'll bring over my craft knife. Very gently streak lines across. And you want these lines to be going in the same direction that the ones underneath are going. And try to make them somewhat random. And don't press too deep, you just want to be scratching the surface of the clay. Okay. And don't put too many as well, it's easy to overdo it. So I'm just looking for areas that I might have missed. Okay, a little bit down here. And they can be long and short lines. Just make them go in the general same direction. Okay, let me just have a look. Missed a little bit around here. But I think that's about it. Now bring over some black paint, and any cheap paint will work, just a really wet paint that's going to antique it for you. So I'll take that paint and I'll start working it into those scratches. So you don't need a lot, just get it in those scratches. So you want a nice wet paint for this. And I find that going against the grain of the scratches gets the paint in there better. Okay, now I will bring over my wet wipe, and I'm just gently going to be wiping away the excess paint. You don't want to be wiping away too hard, because otherwise you might wipe it out of the scratches, which are pretty shallow at the moment. So just gently brush it away. And because this paint is cheap, it's not the nice acrylic paint that's high quality, it will wipe away very easily with just a little bit of water. So it's a nice paint to use in this instance, it's easy to get rid of. Okay, and I'm checking those areas, and I can see that there are some areas where I haven't got the antiquing to my liking. So I'll lift this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm gently going to stretch it in this direction so that I can get those cracks to open up a little bit more, and then I can see if I need to do some more. And so you can always add scratches, you just can't take them away. So it's better to add rather than have too many. Okay, so I'll just repeat that process a few times until I'm happy with how many scratches I have. Okay, so I got those scratches. Now I'm going to pick it up carefully. Just show you how many scratches there are in there. And I'm just going to quickly wipe down the tile like that, and I'll bring that over, and I'm just going to dab away any paint that might be coming up. Now the big problem here is that when you cut out your beads this side, the crackle is going to crack even more, and you don't want that. So I found that if you take it and flip it like this, gently work with it gently and press it down onto your tile, this will help prevent that. Now we're going to be working with teardrop cutters, and we're going to start cutting these out. Now what I want to do is I just want to have a good look at this first before I cut out, because the problem with flipping it over is that you can't actually see where you're cutting. So I think I want to take my cutter and cut out about here. So around here. We'll use the big cutter to do that. Press nice and hard, lift it up, and it comes away pretty cleanly. Now we had a slight lift up over here where the translucent came away. Just pick that up carefully and place that back where it's supposed to go. This part's very fiddly because the translucent doesn't stick to the to the metal leaf as well as it could. But there we are, you can see that it comes out much cleaner that way. If you were to cut it the other way, it would look very unneat. So there we can see that that looks nice. Now what I like to do is I just want to put this aside, and I'm going to bring over the heat gun again, and I like to partially bake this before I take it to the oven so all the bits are sticking together. So I'll just bake it a little bit and you'll see it clear up in a second. There you go. Put that down, and so you can see that it's cleared up quite a bit. It's nice and baked, all the bits are going to stick together while I take it over to the oven, and I'll basically do that with all of my cutters over here. So that was the middle cutter, and so I'll have another two of these on each, one of these on each side, another one of those on each side, and another one of those on each side. So I need to do another 6 pieces. And then I'll take each of them and I'll bake them for a half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then we can start finishing off the sides and do the back nicely. So now that the beads are out of the oven, we want to fix the backs. So if I show you the back on this one, you can see that it really is not pleasant. The same with the sides. We're going to fix up the sides in a little while, but for now we're going to do the backs. Now I've already done all of the other beads that I've taken out of the sheet, and this is how I've done them, just to show you. So here's the bead. You can see the sides are still messy, so we'll fix that next. And here's the back. So hopefully if I direct that, you can see that there's a nice, almost lava-like texture on them, which is quite nice because it echoes what the real Labradorite comes from. So that's the back. So what you'll need is a sheet of black polymer clay run out on the second thinnest setting of your pasta machine. Some sort of texture. I really like this almost foam texture that I got off towards polymer clay. You can use a dishwashing sponge, that would work as well. Any sponge that you can get hold of would work. And you'll bring your acrylic roller over and roll your texture over the surface. Now don't worry about texturing it too much, you're going to retexture it later on. So you just want to get a somewhat obvious texture, just like that. Now you're not going to be able to see it on here because black is hard to pick up when it comes to texture. There you go. Just gently pick it up and you're going to flip it. You're going to bring over the correct size cutter and you're going to cut out a piece. Just put that over to the side. And there's your piece. And then you'll bring over your bead or pendant. You'll place your cutout texture on the back and gently press it down around the sides, almost bending it over the sides. Don't worry about smooshing your texture at the moment, we'll retexture in a minute. So now it's properly on there, and then almost smear it down the sides just to get a really good contact with the clay so it sticks together. And so you can see all the little pellets that are coming off. There we go. Then we're not going to need our black clay anymore, so I'll just scoop that up. And then you want to smooth off the sides with your fingers, just gently run your finger along the side to just get rid of any crags that might be there. Then bring over your sponge that you had, take this, press it on your sponge and press down hard. And that will give you your texture, so hopefully you can see that. Now just press down one more time. And now since this is my largest pendant, I want to actually go and get my logo and see if there's enough space for me to put on. So I'll pop my logo on and then I'll bake all of my beads again for another half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then I'll come and show you how to finish off the sides. Okay, so they're finished baking again. So I'll actually bring them over for you to see the set. Just get them into the right spots. So there we are. They're not going to look as good as they could at the moment because the resin isn't on them yet. So don't worry about it yet. And I made some earrings with some of the leftover bits. So I've got 3 pairs of earrings here that I've done. And I also did the back with my logo. So hopefully you can see that there's a nice texture there as well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to smear the sides to tidy them up. So I'll just move these out of the way and we'll do this one for the moment. You're going to need some more black clay. Take a little bit and warm it up in your hands. Now I have a video on this, so I'll provide a link to that video. It has a lot of tips and things in it to help if you're struggling. So just roll it into a semi-log, some sort of that shape. Press it against the side of your bead and then gently press it across. You want to be using firm pressure so that you smear it across the bead without leaving too much behind, because you don't want a border, you just want, as the name suggests, a smear, which will clean up your side. So there we are, that's the one side all done, so you can see it looks much better now. Just clean up these little bits. It's quite messy. Then just take the base of your finger and run it along the side to clean up, because you don't want any fingerprints, because you can't sand this very much. So just take your finger and smear it smooth. And don't press too hard right now, you just want to be running over it and kind of burnishing it almost into a smooth finish. And you would do this with all of your beads that you had made, and then you would put them in the oven for another half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then that would basically be it. Then we could get onto sanding, buffing, and putting the resin on, which is actually the finishing process. I have to emphasize how much you do need to use resin. You can use a 1-pot resin, a 2-pot resin, but you do have to use resin, otherwise the Labradorite just isn't going to look the way it's supposed to. You have to use resin for this technique to work. So that one's finished just about, so I'm going to put that aside and I'll do the other ones, then pop them in the oven for half an hour, and I'll show you the next part. Now we're ready to move on to the sanding. So you can see that the sides are all nice and finished, and so the next step will be to sand the front and the side and the back. So I'll bring over my polishing papers, and this is my thickest or lowest grit, and I'll just give the front a light sand with it because I don't want to take off too much material, because that translucent is fairly thin. So I'll just give it a light sand, just like this, and you'll do this with all of your beads basically. Give it a nice light sand, and then give your sides a little sand as well. Don't go overboard with this bit, because the sides don't have much clay on them, so if you over sand you'll run out of clay to sand basically. Then you'll go to your next grit, which is a 600. My lowest is a 400, so I'll go over to my next grit, which is a 600, and you can see already that it's starting to smooth out some of those scratches. And we'll give the front a sand, and we're not going to do the backs, I've decided. Okay, and you'll basically do that all the way through your grits until you reach your highest grit, and you'll do that for all of your beads. And then I can show you how to resin them, which is the most important part actually, because it's going to clear this up wonderfully. And then I'll show you how to drill and string. Okay, so now that our beads are all sanded, you can see that they're a lot clearer now, and you can see that they're shiny to a certain degree. But now we need to do the resin, which is going to add the final part. Now, I like to use ice resin, but it is a 2-part resin, and so it can be a little bit fiddly. So I like to use an ice resin plunger. It helps quite a bit when it comes to mixing the 2 parts. So you can get the 2 parts on their own, but the ice resin plunger really helps when it comes to that. So it comes like this, and you just unscrew the top, work it off, and then place it over your cup. Let the air bubbles float up to the top before you do anything, and then press on the plunger. Okay, and just let all of it leak out, and then bring the plunger back up so that you suck in any drips. Then you'll bring over your cap again. I've just got to get into the right spot. Let me see. Here we go. And then twist it to close it. And that's all there is to it. It's a little bit expensive, but it takes all the guesswork out of it. All you have to do now is make sure that you mix it properly. So I like to mix for about 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how hot it is, because the hotter your climate is, the runnier your resin will be, and so the easier it is to mix, but it also means that your working time is shorter. So if it's fairly warm, I'll mix for 3 minutes to make sure that I have mixed it properly. If it is cold, then I mix it for about 5 because the resin consistency is more like thick honey. So you basically want to mix until you get all of the striations out. And don't worry about air bubbles at the moment. Now the nice thing about the plunger is that you don't have to have set amounts. So the minimum that I can make in this cup is 5 mils because you have to mix equal parts. So you need a 2.5 to start with, and then 2.5 plus 2.5 equals 5 mils. So that's the minimum amount that I can mix. With the ice resin plunger, you can pour in as much or as little as you want, which is really nice. So it really takes all the guesswork out of it, and I find that ice resin is much more pleasant to work with when it comes to the edges pulling away and things like that. It doesn't really do that sort of thing. So I like it better when it comes to resining my beads, because the one parts tend to pull away or they don't give a very nice dome. So you can use Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss or Ultra Dome. Those two do work, but I prefer ice resin. So I'll continue mixing this until I'm happy with it, and then I'll show you how to resin them. Okay, so it's been fully mixed. Now I'll bring over the matte. Excuse the colour. I'll just bring the brightness down for you so you don't have to stare at a very bright red screen. And I'll bring over our Labradorite, and hopefully you'll be able to see that against the red background. And I'll just bring a little bit of my resin over and pop it onto the Labradorite. Gosh, you can see the difference instantly. Even I'm surprised by that. Yeah, hopefully you can see the difference on the camera. What I'll do actually is, before I resin the rest, just to show you the difference, I'm just going to pick that up very gently, move that out the way, and brighten this up a bit again so you can see. And I'm just going to kind of twist that around so you can just see what a massive difference that resin makes. You have to put resin on this, otherwise you're going to lose half the effect. So please use resin, otherwise it's not going to look good. It'll look okay, but not great. So you'll just carry on resining, just gently along the sides, like that. Just like that, and you don't have to put very much on, just a little bit. And I'll basically do that with all of my beads. So I'll bring this next to it so you can see the difference. And I'll do that with all of my beads, and then I will leave it for 24 hours to cure, and then we can move on to the next stage. So here's what they look like now that they have finished curing. So I just want to bring this up and show you how shimmery that is, which is really what you want to get in Labradorite. So this is the reason why I like to use Lisa Pavelka's foils, because I found that her silver foil is the only one that does this. You'll get the kind of flat look with the silver leaf, but you won't get this shimmer that you get with the real Labradorite. So let me just bring over the real gemstone and show you. See, it shimmers just like that. Now you're never going to be able to get the exact colour change where it goes from grey to this beautiful blue, but you do want to try and imitate that shine as much as you can. So you can see that this one, it kind of imitates that. And so here's what it looks like against the stone. See if I can get that for you. So it's pretty close. Okay, so got the necklace and I've got 3 pairs of earrings here. So I'm just going to pop these aside, and I am going to show you how to drill them, because that's the next stage. Okay, so I'll bring over my drill bit, and now I'm going to be using a push drill, and you want a very small drill bit because this isn't very thick. I'm just going to place this down here, and I'm going to drill a guide hole, and I'm going to be very careful because I don't want to scratch anything. Okay, and once I've kind of got the guide hole going, then I'll start using the push drill to start drilling the hole for me. And now I want to go about halfway and then do the rest by hand so that I can make sure that I'm getting a nice straight hole. So there we are. Do it slowly and carefully. There we are. Careful not to prick yourself with this because it's quite sharp. And I want to drill my holes before I put the Renaissance wax on. So there, hopefully you can see it. There's a nice clean hole there. And we'll do that at the top of all of our beads. And then we can move on to the Renaissance wax. I still really love how shimmery that is. Okay, so I've drilled these up. Now I am ready to place a thin layer of Renaissance on the backs and the sides. So I'll bring over the Renaissance wax. And I'll bring over an old cloth, which we are going to use, and I'll just dip that into the Renaissance wax and get a little bit, and close up your Renaissance wax as well. And then you'll take the back of your bead, gently wipe that Renaissance wax on, and you'll want to do that for the sides as well. So I'm just being very careful here because, well, you just want to be careful. So you can see that I'm gently wiping it around the sides. And then you want to kind of give it a little bit of a buff as well. If you have a Dremel, you'll want to use the Dremel. But you can also hand buff it quite well. So that's basically what I'll do with all of my beads. Give them a nice coat of Renaissance wax so that the texture shines a little bit and so the sides have a little bit of a shimmer to them. But you can see they're no challenge to the front. So I'll do that with all of my beads and then we can get onto string. Okay, so that's done. We are ready to start stringing. So I've got a piece of black Acuflex here. I've got 2 charlotte crimps, a clasp, 2 jump rings, and off to the side I have 8 black onyx beads, and they are 4mm rounds. You're also going to need 2 crimps. So what you'll do to start is you'll take a charlotte crimp, thread it on like that, then I'll just bring over a crimp and string that on and just leave a little tail, bring over some pliers, squish it flat, bring the charlotte crimp back up around the crimp and close. Okay, then put that aside. Then you'll take your jump ring and you'll open that up, pop that through your charlotte crimp and put a piece of your clasp on. There we go. Then I will thread on a black onyx bead, then a Labradorite bead, then onyx, and then Labradorite, and then so on, basically until I am finished with the entire necklace, like that. Then we'll repeat what we did on the other side. We'll take a charlotte crimp and the crimp that ran off, thread that on, squeeze, bring the charlotte crimp back up, close that around, squeeze, and then bring over the jump ring, and we will open that up just like this, thread on our clasp, bring over our charlotte crimp, thread that through, and close it up, and then we're done. Just let me close that up quickly. Okay, so that's all there is to it. I thought that a simple string would look best. And there we are. So that's what the front looks like. I'll just clean off the tile quickly, and I'll just show you quickly what the back looks like. So it's just plain black background, and the front looks like that. So I'll just show you how shimmery each of these beads are, which is really what makes it nice. So I'll probably do a few earrings later on, and you can imagine how nice and shimmery the earrings will be when they're moving around when worn. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I do hope that this tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know, and please do send me pictures of what you do use in this tutorial, as I always love seeing pictures. There's a place where you can send them in on the website jessymatutorials.com. You can also send them in on Facebook, and I'll have a look at them there. If you have any questions regarding this project, if you're having trouble or I didn't explain something quite right that you're having difficulty with, please don't hesitate to contact me. I am always open to answering questions. You can contact me through YouTube, Facebook, Etsy. You can even contact me through my website as well. So please do ask questions if you do have any questions, as I'm always here to help. So please don't hesitate. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.